Hello and welcome to the INNERview. I'm your host, Jennifer Clyde. I am here today at the Kumho Art Hall, situated in downtown Seoul. I'm here to meet with a rising violinist who is garnering a lot of attention from worldwide classical music enthusiasts. If you're ready, stay tuned as I take you to meet Clara-Jumi KANG.
The first Korean musician ever to win the International Violin Competition of Indianapolis in 2010, Clara-Jumi KANG.
I always wished from when I was young to perform and to be able to do music making as long as possible. I thought it was just part of my life.
She picked up the violin at the age of 4.
It's on my back. I feel like a turtle. I always have something on my back, and it is quite heavy.
And has been inspiring people with her musical abilities ever since.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Amazing grace, how sweet.
Every time she's on stage, she enraptures the audience with her exceptional delivery and brilliant techniques. Stay tuned to learn more about the up-and-coming violinist, Clara-Jumi KANG, and check out her impressive performances.
All right, so Clara, are you ready for our INNERview where we get to, dig deep down and find out all about you?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I've got tons of questions to ask you, but I would first of all like to begin by asking what brings you here to this location today?
Today we're having a duo recital, and with a friend, pianist of mine, Seoul Kim.
I see.
And we're performing works of Brahms and Prokofiev and Debussy.
I see. So how do you know Kim Seoul Kim?
Seoul, I've personally known him for 2 years now,
2 years.
maybe. We have mutual friends, and of course, I mean, we almost practically know each other all here, all the musicians.
So when you practice for, I guess, a recital, I guess I do, a dual recital, do you usually practice for many hours, or is it just something that's done really quickly?
I think it kind of matters to the repertoire. If I've played it a lot of times, then I can focus more on the musical side of practicing. And if it's something that I've picked up from a very long time or something I'm learning new, then of course I need to invest more time. Because, I mean, he practices alone and I practice alone. I think it's easier, to keep the recital rehearsal quite straightforward.
I see.
To not get too tired.
Not to tire yourself out too much.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you do in particular, or things that you avoid doing before a performance, before a recital?
Recent habit I've developed is not to drink too much coffee.
Oh.
Because I like coffee, but I think maybe 3-4 hours before I try not to. And nowadays I try to just kind of take a nap, which really doesn't work, but like just to be quiet for at least an hour.
Are there any superstitions or anything that you avoid because you think it could jinx you in any way?
Not jinx, but for example, I do want to have like at least 20 minutes to warm up. And I like to be a little bit quiet, just to keep, just to run through my head what the program is and kind of, set up my mind.
Yeah.
Jinx? I've had few when I was younger, but I always thought, I need to get rid of those things. I mean, they're kind of mental.
Oh,
not,
I see. Could you maybe mention one of them? Do you remember any of them?
I would like wash my hands 10 seconds before running into the stage, because I do sweat a lot, my hands, and so I always, it was kind of a mental thing, and then I got rid of it, so now I would wash, well, not entirely, I got rid of it partly. I would wash my hands maybe 4 minutes before, 5 minutes before, but at least I don't run into the bathroom. I used to like, oh wait a second, and then run, and then...
It was something you had to do.
Yeah, and then I stopped doing it and it's fine. So I realized it's kind of mental too. Yeah.
Have you invited any special people to tonight's recital, dual recital?
Yes, first of all, I've invited my family.
I see.
My father's unfortunately not here, but my siblings and my mother are coming.
Does it excite you, or does it make you nervous to have more people coming to watch you, such as friends? I'm sure you're used to your family watching you.
Yeah.
What about friends?
No. I think I am more comfortable with bigger crowd.
I see.
For example, this kind of is, I think, 400, 500 seats. I like it when it's much bigger.
Oh, is there a reason why?
I mean, I love this for recital, but sometimes you know, you feel a little bit in a closer. Yes, I like to play also in bigger crowds because it's just this different atmosphere. I think.
What exactly do you see when you're on stage? Do you see anything when you're performing on stage?
Well, because I have my eyes shut, I don't think I really see anything. Maybe it's also because I don't want to see anything. I kind of did it from a very young age. I always, when I see pictures of myself performing when I was young, my eyes were always shut.
I see.
But I think it comes because I want to be able to listen a little bit more to my sound, and the person I'm performing with, piano or orchestra, and sometimes it helps me to focus more. Of course, if I play with orchestra, and even with pianist, we have to give signs and everything, so I cannot keep my eyes shut too much.
So I guess in order for you to focus more on your performance, you try not to look at the audience, I guess.
Yes, so I try to, when I come and bow, I try to kind of see everyone, but I don't think I really notice anyone personally. Even, I mean, people say, oh, did you see me? And no. But you were looking at me. No. It's just like, you know, I play just an over.
Right, just like a whole bunch of people just sitting in.
The recital was about to begin, and Clara went over the repertoire with the pianist one last time. The young violinist has earned international acclaim for delivering powerful performances that are rich in emotion, but it wasn't just her raw talent that made her an icon. It was the sweat, tears, and toil she shed behind the scenes that brought her to international stardom.
So what brought you to Korea at this time around?
I came to Korea about a month ago, and I did, I think, 3 different concerts. First was this Swiss orchestra came to Korea, and for the Asian tour, Swiss Romand, and we played at Seoul Art Center. We performed Tchaikovsky concerto. And then right after that, I went to Great Mountains Music Festival, which is an international festival in Korea, in Gangwon province, and I spent 2 weeks there.
2 weeks, that's a long time. How was it? Was it a lot of fun?
Yes, this time I had really, really lots of fun. I think it felt like a week first of all.
Definitely was a lot of fun. And I understand this wasn't your first year; it's your 8th year.
Yes, I think about around there.
So, who did you perform with this time?
I performed with a lot of group of people. For example, with one of the director is Kumho Chang, a cellist. We performed together, Florence, Tchaikovsky Florence, and with Maxim Rizanov, and of course I played a Dochnani quintet with whom I really love very much, Peter Frankel, pianist, and we also played the Brahms clarinet quintet with Richard Stoltzman. And so it was so nice this year because I was given the opportunity to play with musicians who were 40 years older and 40, 50 years older, and it just gave me such inspiration for 2 weeks, because you travel alone, you play most of the time solo, and then you get to see all different you play all different style of music. We started off with Baroque. I played the Leclerc duo sonata with also a friend of mine, and then we just gradually went to Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Dochnani, and so many different styles of music with so many different styles of musicians, and just it just feels like a second home there, like a summer home.
What would you say was maybe special about this year's Great Mountains International?
I was given a chance to teach students this year, and I think I taught maybe a little over 20 hours, and so whenever I didn't have rehearsals, I was mostly teaching. And some of the students I personally know because I went to college in Korea for a few years, so they are students of my teacher, Professor Namin Kim. And so I mean, it felt, I didn't feel like a teacher, but it felt more like I was kind of we were kind of discussing what could be made, what you could change musically here, and this is my idea, what do you think? And so it was really fun to also have that perspective.
I see. What would be the biggest difference between performing and teaching, because you had the experience this year?
The main difference for me is that when I practice and I spend time with myself developing musically, you never have to explain to yourself why you're doing it. I mean, well, maybe in your mind, yes, but you don't really have to put it in words. Whereas if you try to explain to somebody, this is what I think, then it has to kind of sound convincing. And so you have to think and kind of, how do I show this? And then after you've put it into words, and then you think about it yourself, then sometimes I feel like, that's what I was thinking when I was playing, this is what you put in words. And this is also a really big learning process, because I do think that teaching is also a lot of practice.
To my understanding, I understand that you were admitted to a very special school at a very young age. This was when you were 4 years old?
Yes. I first, well, it's called like pre-college student. And most of the pre-college students, I mean, they start when they're 13 or something. And when I was 4, my parents wanted me to, of course, have a good teacher to advise me. And it had been only 1 year since I had started the violin. And so they sent an application to the Mannheim Musikhochschule, which is the university, music university. And when they received the application, I mean, they asked me to come and play the audition, and I went. And the minute I stepped in the room, apparently all the professors were like, why is she here? Why is this young girl here?
Little girl, yeah.
And the story was that they just saw the age 4 on the application, and they thought that whoever wrote the application missed the one. in front. So they really did not expect a 4-year. So people, I mean, I think in the school office somebody already put a 1. So what they were actually seeing was 14.
I see.
And so when I came in, but I think they thought I was kind of cute. So they said, okay, play something for us. And they luckily said, okay, let's take her.
Wow.
And this is how I ended up.
A child prodigy spreads her wings to music.
How many teachers would you say you had so far?
About 7.
7,
yeah.
And is that considered many, a lot, or?
For some people, yes. And I've seen also violinists who have had around that teacher, around that many teacher. My family moved a lot when I was young, and we were fortunate enough to be able to move because my father's profession is an opera singer.
Yes.
And if you're an opera singer, you really don't have to stick to one place. So we were fortunate enough. I mean, my parents could take us wherever our studies kind of took us. And so that's why I find it very fortunate in my case.
Your family, I mean, you were born into a musical family. I understand that. Your brothers, and you have a sister?
And 2 brothers.
And 2 brothers. They are somehow related to music as well, I understand. Do you ever perform together as a whole family? Have you ever?
I mean, with my father and my mother, we haven't been able to perform because there are not many where strings and vocals get together. With my older brother and my older sister, we had a trio actually, which was called Kang Trio. And we recorded 1 CD and we performed quite a lot when we were young. Now, as we grow older, I mean, we're so occupied with our own stuff that it's really hard to come together.
I see.
Yeah.
So how often do you get to see your family?
Actually, I see them more than I used to because now when I'm in Korea, I see them. Because my parents live in Korea right now. Maybe, I don't know, nowadays maybe 1 month, a year. I see them, like in a total, yeah.
Wow. What was the longest duration, longest time you didn't have the opportunity to see your family?
It could go to months. As we siblings, we grow older, of course, we kind of live apart from home. And so it's been actually quite a few years since the whole family did get together. Even now we have missed a few years. And like all 6 people, it's always the other 5 and the other 5, but never 6 people together. And so, I mean, we need to do that soon, yeah.
I'm sure there's especially a sister or a brother that you're closest with. Yeah, right?
I think it just comes genuinely from spending the most time together. I lived in Germany for quite a long time. I lived only with my older brother in Berlin, and I spent my whole middle school and a little bit of high school just living with my older brother.
What kind of brother was he when you were young?
Well, Boris, my brother, he was very protective, but every protection that he provided for me in middle school, I mean, the guys and we're all very wild when we're in puberty age. And so I think all the protection that he was trying to provide made perfect sense. And that made us become this close. And I mean, we could talk all day and we have so much to talk. I mean, it comes from this place because we spend so much time, yeah.
So did he not allow you to date boys? I mean,
I wasn't interested in boys my age, first of all.
Okay.
And so, you know,
you were interested in boys way older than you, or?
Actually, I was not interested in boys.
Okay.
Because I didn't have anybody who was that much older than me. I mean, you know, also, and I was more also into kind of all that dancing and singing, and yes, and composing songs. You know, because at that time I had a few years where I stopped playing the violin. So due to an accident that I had while doing sports.
Did you hurt your hands? Is that what
yeah,
happened?
I hurt my pinky finger, and it's still kind of very crooked.
Oh.
It just happened all of a sudden, and it was a huge accident.
No.
And I had to go through 2 major surgeries, and then of course the doctor came to the conclusion that I should not play. I mean, I am not able to play violin anymore, and so it just happened one day, like this, just gone.
You must have been devastated.
Yeah, but I think had it happened to me now, I really don't know. But at that time, you know, when you're young, kind of you adjust pretty quickly. I mean, of course, it was very hurtful, but you try to kind of protect yourself and then find new hobbies.
Right, just accept reality.
Right. But obviously, I didn't really accept reality because I kept coming back, and that's why that's the point where I asked my father, could you buy me a hobby violin? And that's when he brought Lara home.
I see.
And so I just started playing, and the most amazing thing was that everything worked. I mean, I hadn't played for 3 years. Just this didn't work, but everything else worked. So I was playing, and that's when I hoped that I could play violin again, and then it worked. Yeah.
So you never lost hope. You tried, and here you are because you didn't give up. Wow, that's so. You did practice with these 3 fingers for a while, and I guess
and then it came
little
back.
by little. Yeah. What did your parents say when they said, "Wow"? When you said, "I could actually play"?
I think my father kind of he also didn't really accept. So the minute I asked him to buy a violin, he came. The next time he came home right away with a violin, and it was as if, you know, that we were kind of hoping that it would recover, and it did recover, and now it's better than ever. Hello, I'm Clara-Jumi Kang. You're watching the interview. Please stay tuned.
What kind of violin did you perform with or practice with?
I have my own violin, which is, I mean, it's not a very valuable violin, but for me it's very valuable because I bought it when I was maybe 13.
13?
And I've played on it for, I think, 10 years.
Wow.
And now I've lent it to a Korean violinist who is younger, and she happens to not own a violin, and so I told her she can use it.
Oh wow, how generous of you.
Well, first of all, with violins, it's always better to let somebody use it than just having it at home. It's not only about the care of the violin, but you know, violin needs to be played.
I heard about the Lara,
Yeah.
and you named your violin Lara.
Yeah.
Lara, is there any connection between your name, like you, Lara?
Yes, it comes from actually my mother. When I was young, and I had, you know, when you are young, you have violins that you change almost every few months because it goes by size. And you start with a smaller violin, and my mother used to call every violin that I played on, as the size grew older, the name did never change. It was always Lara. And so I thought, when I first got my own violin, I said, okay, I should name her Lara too. And it comes just from Clara, and just you put the C out, and it's just Lara.
It's cute, Lara. Yeah. Now, you have won several international competitions, I understand. Which of the international competitions would you say that you are most proud of winning? I'm sure every single one of them.
Yeah, they were all really special, but I would also, of course, pick the recent ones.
The recent
So the last competition that I did was Indianapolis Violin Competition in the States and in the United States. And it was the competition that I won, and then I retired from competition.
I see.
So of course this is in my memory as a recent event.
So that was a competition that you, well, that was your final competition, as you mentioned, and you decided to retire. Is there any special reason why you decided to retire?
I thought that that competition was a really, really big competition. You know, the prize that comes with this competition was so big. First of all, they gave me a Stradivarius violin for 4 years, and then they gave me, they gave me the opportunity to play in Carnegie Hall in the Stern Auditorium in New York.
Right.
And then so many concerts in the States. And this is a competition that, I think a lot of people know and appreciate, and I just thought it's a good reason to quit.
You won the competition, and were you lent or given, or what exactly happens?
So every winner gets to play for 4 years until the next competition. And actually the winners return the violin maybe 1 week before the next result. So they come and then they give the violin. And I remember that after the award ceremony, I was so excited to have to get this violin. So I actually just took it with me. I just said, can they wanted to adjust some things on the violin, to do adjustments for me. I just said, I just want to take this in a double case, and then I'll come back to do the adjustments. So I really did. I remember I left right after the award ceremony the next day. And I just took the violin in double case, and then I came with 2 violins to Korea.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then I did adjustments later, so I was really excited. Yeah.
I can imagine how excited you must have been, just grabbing it and saying bye-bye, and just take off with it. So you're lent the violin for 4 years, and you said you do have to return it. Was it difficult for you to return it, because you played the violin for 4 years? It was yours for 4 years. I guess you can call it your baby. It was your baby for 4 years. How did it, what did it feel like when you had to return it?
It was not easy because, I did so many concerts with that violin in that 3 years I've had it. And I still have the position of that violin. Because I've been performing so much on it, it just feels like this feels rather very new still. And I still have the imagination of that particular sound, because that violin had a very special E string. And whenever I was on the high note, sometimes even now I feel like, oh, I miss that sound. And I did also a special project. I recorded a whole solo album with that violin, and because it was a solo album, it's just the violin there, just only the violin.
Nothing but the violin.
Right, so you hear every quality of that violin, and sometimes when I miss that violin, I usually don't listen to my playing that much, but I would listen to the recording and just kind of, that was the sound,
Which violin is this? This was lent to you as well?
Yes, I was very lucky to be able to return that violin earlier, the Gingold Strad, and then in I just handed it over in New York, and this violin happened to be in New York, so I just kind of exchanged violin.
You did mention briefly before the interview that these violins are extra sensitive, especially sensitive to humidity and even sunlight. What's the reason behind that?
It's just a very old wood.
Wood?
Yeah, wood, and so I think it takes humidity much more easily, and is very, very sensitive to dryness also. So I have this kind of thing where you can see how much humidity, if it's 50% or 60%, this case has this. And the reason why I just even kept this in right now was because I sometimes have the feeling that the extreme light also kind of, you know, makes it. So I keep it as much as possible inside the case, because inside the case, you know, I have this kind of also.
Oh, that's to absorb.
Right, now because it's humid season. And so kind of, I always watch this and adjust, sort of, if I feel it's too dry, then I would put like a water thing here also.
But I see that the violin is wrapped up in a black cloth. I would love to see the violin. Could you show it to us?
Of course. This is my violin.
Wow.
This is the Del Gesù 1725, lent to me by Samsung, and it's very pretty.
It is very pretty. I'm afraid to touch it, but can I touch it?
Yeah.
I could say, yes, the sound of it. Could you maybe? Even you playing with your thumb, just plucking that string with your thumb, it just sounds beautiful. Oh, thank you very much for showing us the violin. Is there anything special about this violin that you might want to point out and maybe teach us, educate us about the violin?
This violin is, I don't know, it just, for me, it's very man-like.
Man-like?
Yeah, for example, the violin that I had before this, the Strad, I would call it a little bit more feminine, but for me it looks like male.
Does it make more of a masculine, does it produce a more masculine sound?
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but when you spend like a few hours a day to it, I don't know why, but I always try to treat the instrument like a friend, or you know, I don't know, I might be kind of complicated in my head. I like to kind of define if it's feminine or masculine. I think this is kind of masculine, even the color and everything compared to the violin that I had, which was really
darker,
gold.
reddish.
No, it was very bright, and just the way it just looks a little bit man-like.
It's a very valuable violin. Well, thank you for showing us the violin. I would imagine, since this is from, what, 17 something you mentioned, it's very valuable, so you must be very careful with it while you have it. Were there any, I guess, incidents or, you know, happenings when you had the Stradivarius? And what about with this violin as well? When you travel around the world, when you're traveling on planes or just moving around, do you carry it with you everywhere you go? Everywhere you go. You don't take it to the restroom, do you? You do?
It has like a kind of backpack,
like a
strap, and that strap is on my back. I feel like a turtle. I like always have something on my back, and it is quite heavy. After a while, not having the violin, and kind of, you know, I would hide the violin under the bed in the hotel.
I see.
and then I would put don't disturb sign so that people think I'm in, and then I would go out.
Right.
And then I would feel really, really light, as if I've lost like 10 kilos. You know?
I know what that feeling is like, yeah.
And so I think I'm more used to having it, and I feel more safe.
Clara-Jumi Kang may be a world-renowned violinist, but she appreciates simplicity and finds small joys in life.
What are some odd habits?
Odd habits of mine? Odd habits? Well, I think I have very odd habits. I like to, sometimes I like to do nothing at home and just be honest, still. Like, time is totally stopped, and then I just stay home and I enjoy the free time.
You just sit at home, just close your eyes, you don't...
No, not that I would do. I have a lot of things at home. But the thing is that people always think, you know, oh, what are your hobbies? Well, sometimes I like to just, you know, rest. Yeah.
Are you dating anyone?
Not at the moment.
Would you like to?
Who wouldn't? If you're single, you want to date, yeah.
Do you have time to date?
Not really, because I don't really stick. But it's not about time. Dating, if you find someone you date, you can date. You don't need actually that much time.
Do you exercise at all? Like, what do you, are you naturally like born like that way?
No. I think violin is kind of a physical exercise too. I try to swim, but I can get pretty lazy.
So who are your like friends? Do you hang out with a lot of musicians, or do you hang out with like non-musicians?
I think the majority of my friends are musicians, yeah. I mean, the majority of people we meet are musicians, and then you become friends. Yeah. And then, because since I was young, I went to music schools. I had always friends who did music, so kind of developed, yeah.
Do you freak out when you don't see your violin? Like, how do you feel?
If I don't have a violin next to me? Oh yeah, I miss it, but usually it's quite close to me.
Have you even thought about that, like losing or not even being with you?
Oh, you mean losing?
Yeah.
A violin, like losing the instrument? No, I don't want to imagine.
What part were you so attracted to?
I think it was the sound and the fact that it had so much resonance. Like as a young child, I played the piano, and it was kind of, the tone was very direct and it stopped right away. While as the violin, it felt like singing, like really vocal singing, and that's what attracted.
Do you have a role model?
Nowadays I get more good influence of a good vibe of people that I meet regularly, and then they give kind of this special connection, and then I feel like I can develop with them together. And I think nowadays my friends do a big role in it, and my family maybe. Yeah.
If you have to describe yourself just to public really shortly, how do you describe yourself?
My character? Kind of shy, maybe. Not when playing violin, but most of the time, yeah. I'm not as outgoing as people would assume. I don't know, it's just a genuine shyness, but I open up very quickly, and then I can.
So what do you do when you're stressed out? What do you do to alleviate stress, to kind of relieve all that stress that's built up?
I like to watch movies. I like to read also. I would just walk sometimes, you know, just without any direction. Well, I would not walk anywhere, but I would walk kind of in the city center where there are shops, and just kind of walk the whole path. Sometimes I would just walk with music on my, and I don't know, I don't have a special routine actually. It's just kind of, I do what I feel like.
I see.
At that moment, yeah.
So is that when you started dating? I mean, did you, when was, I know this is personal, but if you allow me to ask you, how old were you when you had your first boyfriend, when you dated a guy for the very first time?
I don't know. Can I say I don't remember? No, I think around college, because I went to college when I was 17. I went 2 years younger than my friends, and of course that's when I started like kind of officially dating.
Is it hard to have a relationship? Some people don't like to have long distance relationships. I mean, is it difficult for you to meet people, date people? Do you have a preference? For example, do you prefer to maybe date musicians or people that have, you know, as many similarities with you? Or
yeah, I mean, even all a majority of my friends are musicians. I must admit, it's just simply because I mean, you meet musicians more than non-musicians. With dating, I don't really have a preference, but I'm sure that it's easier for me to date musicians, and these kind of long distance and everything, it doesn't matter at all. Actually, it doesn't. I mean, of course, it is harder for you to meet people when you're constantly traveling, but I think that doesn't matter.
So what would you consider most important in a relationship then?
To be friends. To be able to be friends. I mean, have similar hobbies.
Wow. Are there any things that you look for in particular in a guy? Because for me, I have a thing for hands and feet, or about hands and feet.
I think I would prefer a masculine hand than a feminine hand. I don't know.
A lot of women have this in, you know, in mind, so it's a similarity. Anything else? Maybe, is there something you dislike or would hate to see in a man?
No, I think if you become really good friends, doesn't really matter at that point anymore. Yeah.
Sound like a very laid back, very cool person.
Yeah.
Now we are slowly approaching the end of the interview, but I just wanted to know, what kind of musician would you like to be remembered as?
I don't know about remembered, but I know that I do want to grow, just develop more every time and every year, and just to always have that direction of always wanting to become a better musician. And I do think that if you want to become a better musician, you have to try to become a better person.
Right.
And be alert of everything that's around you. So this is actually my biggest goal, I think, to just keep on developing.
Sounds very complicated, but very meaningful. I mean, you do look like a very passionate person. I can feel the passion. I could see it in your eyes. Is there any message you want to send out to people to kind of inspire them or give them courage or keep them going? To give them hope, maybe?
Yeah, I think nowadays there are a lot of things happening in Korea. Unfortunate things that are happening, and I do feel like we always need hope, sort of. Unfortunately, I'm not really good with words. Yeah, but maybe I could sing a phrase of a song that I always kind of sing to myself. If you know, it's a very simple song, and everybody knows it. But it sends out the right meaning of. Yeah, the lyrics are.
Be very honored. Yes, thank you. Please do.
Oh God, I talked so much. I just hear the words. Everybody knows it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Wow, that was beautiful. I'm getting chills all over my body. Well, thank you so much.
It has a nice resonance here.
Yes,
so
beautiful voice. You sing beautifully, and that
you.
was a beautiful song. I'm sure it's send out a lovely message to all of our viewers. So thank you so much. Last but not least, we have our final question. A question you cannot avoid if you're on the interview. The question is, what is the violin to you? To Clara-Jumi KANG, what is the violin?
I think just to put it in one word would be probably it's my life. To put it in more details, it's just like food for me, I think. If I don't have it every day, I don't know what to do with myself, because that's probably one of the few things that I know how to do in life. And yeah, so I think, and then it is also my best friend. Yeah.
Thank you so much once again for your time. We know that you're very, very busy, and I know it's right before your dual recital tonight, so we hope you do really well. And thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
motherland.